Hi, everyone. My name's Carla Sabella, and I've been working with students for many, many years now on their writing and, in particular, how to prepare for exams, particularly for English. And one of the things I want to talk to you about today is how to come up with ideas for the areas of writing like creative writing, discursive writing, and persuasive writing, all of which are now being done, from primary school level up. And I think it's a fantastic addition to the types of writing expected for English because it's really forcing you and to have a look, not forcing, but having you, getting you to have a look at what's going on in the world. And this is what I really want to talk about today, because being informed, doing your wider reading, understanding what issues are, relevant to our society, and then using those as a basis for your writing will make a massive difference in terms of not only the substance of what you're writing about, but also the marks you'll receive for what you write about. Because teachers really want to see that you have a lot of engagement with, like what's relevant to us, what are we dealing with as a society. And there are so many things that, we can talk about. And this is actually just such a great opportunity for you to have a look at an issue that interests you, something that engages you. You can have an opinion about it, which is just very different to the style of writing where you've got to analyze a text and what does that composer want to say, what is their message. And that's totally fine, that's great as well, but we also want to hear your views and what's your voice. And in order to create that, you need to do some wide reading. Right? So I always recommend subscriptions to news media. I've got a couple of those, and that kind of also is good because it gives you a bit more of a view from different perspectives. Remember, whoever's creating or writing particular news could be influenced by who's funding that. So there are particular media corporations that will be funding particular newspapers and media and so forth. But either way, and there are documentaries, like there's so many places that you can look to, and you won't even realize you'll be exposed to so many of these even just in your day-to-day life. So just as a couple of examples off the top of my head, looking at the idea of social media, and what impact is that having on relationships and the way people interact with each other, and the way that you could discuss like the benefits of that. Like look at what we can see as a result of the unregulated, in some ways, well, that's the idea anyway, ability for people to put news and expose things online. So a really good example of that is last year with the horrific murder of George Floyd, and the fact that that was captured by somebody on a phone and then uploaded for so many millions of people to see, and for that to be exposed. So that sort of you can sort of see the benefit of exposing these things to kind of help to bring justice. And then on the other hand, and then this is where things like discursive pieces could come into it, having a look at the social isolation that could potentially be caused through the use of things like the overuse of things like social media, and having your phone on you all the time and a computer out and all of these things. So that's just one example of something that you would absolutely be experiencing in your own life. And at that point it's really good if you did want to choose to do a piece on that. So let's say you did an imaginative, you could start with an individual who is isolated in a room. So how could you use descriptive language to create that isolation, etc., and have something play out from there. Or if you're doing a discursive, you could look at discussing both sides of this argument. And this is where your research will come in really handy. So bringing in things like statistics and quotes from experts, and and just in general, like using your own sort of written technique. So like lots of asking questions with discursive writing, and doing things like using anaphora. So like if you were maybe raising a couple of repeated questions like, how do we know if this is safe? How do we know if this is benefiting us? How can we find this out? So you can see the use of anaphora with the repetition of those phrases. How do we? It sort of raises that idea of there's like such an uncertainty in that particular issue about, what the consequences of a lot of these things are. And, it's different even for particular age groups. So they'll be looking at this issue for teens. They'll be, at what age should, minors and infants be, exposed to these types of media and so on, and what are the potential pros and cons of that, and there's so many things. So that's just like that one issue, but a lot of things topical at the moment. Gender, looking at like women in parliament and the injustices and the allegations that have been made, and then sort of bringing, like, with, of course, the intention being to bring equality, and to, have there be a fair place for, people to be represented and not be exposed to harm or be discredited based on, gender or race or, sexual identity or any of these things. So, that's another one that's really topical, but really at any point in time, you open up the news and there's so much available. So what I just really want you to take away from this is the importance of doing wide reading, even just quick articles here and there. Like, it doesn't need to be, extended novels and things, although that's great too, but like just being informed, and, like starting to think about what your opinion is towards these things. So, you could have a particular topic where you would be writing a persuasive because you just feel really strongly about the fact that, this should be, something should be the case. I always think that, maybe doing something environmental could be a really good way to do a persuasive, because I think it's very clear at this point that, we really need to be working towards, living in much more harmony with the environment, because not doing so is going to have these really awful ramifications, many of which we've already seen, and are currently experiencing. So that could be a really good idea for persuasive, whereas a discursive, I suppose I gave you that example of the, the social media thing. And then, and then for imaginative, you could kind of pick any one of these issues. So, and doing that research and that wider reading, even if you're doing an imaginative piece, it still makes a huge difference, because your ability to be able to understand the issue in depth and write authentically about it will be greatly heightened by the fact that you are knowledgeable about it. And that's really what teachers want to see. And the more you read, the more you understand, the better informed you are. And, the more you can kind of also make an impact on the things that are important to you. And, if you feel passionately about something, you can start implementing it in your current environment. There's no reason for why you can't start making these changes now. You don't need to wait till after school to do any of these things. So, I really just want to encourage you, like, keep your minds open, keep those conversations going, stay informed, do that reading, and it will really make a big difference when it comes time for you to just be given, a topic or a stimulus or something, and you've got to come up with something.